A Really Nice Prom Mess is basically about two guys who decide to go to the prom together on a secret double date. Basically, they're taking two girls and sort of like pretending that they're, with these girls, but the two guys are actually together. The problem is they neglect to tell one of the girls, and she finds out this secret on page one, actually, and then the night sort of starts to unravel from there. Complications beget complications, and drug dealers and the police get involved, and there's a few go-go boys as well thrown in there just for good measure. So, yeah, their prom ends up, becoming this all-night long adventure through Washington, D.C., and that's sort of where it all goes. It's definitely a pretty big mess, but a fun mess. As a teen, I went to the prom. I wasn't really out at the time, but I just thought it would be an interesting perspective to show what it's like for somebody who's more out than I was going to the prom and trying to deal with the situation of having a boyfriend, but having it not really acceptable. You have that kind of a setup of basically this secret double date. It's a great setup for sort of a comedy of errors because you have a secret and then suddenly everybody's trying to like keep the secret and it creates a lot of instant drama. It's just like if you need drama, just add a secret and something that nobody can know, and instantly you're going to propel your story along. And so that's sort of really what inspired me for this was kind of reimagining my own kind of prom situation. If I had really been out at that time, what would that have been like? I think one of the biggest influences for me as a writer, especially as a writer of young adult books, is actually, and I probably shouldn't say this, but not another author. It's John Hughes in the movies that John Hughes did back in the 80s, which was when I was a teenager and were really formative for me in terms of, my ideas about high school and life in general. So I'd say, his films really had a big influence on me and really have inspired me in what I wanted to do, both as a writer for these books, but also as a filmmaker too, which is sort of my other career. I started writing fiction before I was officially a filmmaker. I started writing when I was in college. I was an English major at Boston College, and that's when I started doing a lot of writing. And then when I applied to film school, I didn't really have a lot of films, so I sent them a lot of my fiction. And that's really how I got into film school. I had made one film, but mainly it was on the strength of my writing that I got into film school. So I've sort of always been a fiction writer, though it wasn't really my main focus. But then, after my films got out, and then there was an editor here at Simon and Schuster who saw a few of my movies, David Gale, and really liked them and asked me if I'd be interested in writing a book. And I was like, I've been trying to write books for years and it just never happened. So they've had this interesting relationship, the books and the films. They both kind of feed on each other. They're both very, different mediums. It's all kind of creative energy just coming out in different forms. Some of the films I had done previous to this dealt with young adults, and especially issues of young adults who were dealing with sexuality and coming out. So it's always been something I've been interested in as a writer, the high school experience and how those years are so formative for somebody's character. So it's always been a big interest of mine. And, basically when David Gale, who's the editor here, asked me to write books for teens, I was sort of like, sure, that would be great. I think my biggest concern was I didn't know exactly what that meant. Like, I thought, are there going to be restrictions? Are there words I can't use? Like, do I have to kind of censor myself? But, YA books had changed a lot since I was in high school, and he pretty much gave me free range to do what I wanted. And I pitched him this story about a gay teenager going to the prom with his boyfriend secretly. And he was like, that sounds really interesting. So it ended up working out really great. It's definitely a subject I've always been interested in, and I'm really thrilled to be able to write about it.